what do you want to do in that technical space? Because early in my career, I didn't know where to really go, so I was just
Yeah.
learning as much as I can, being nosy, reading stuff, asking people questions, because you just don't know what you don't know until you ask. Your team, your manager, your peers are depending on you to do what you need to do. Execute well on it, improve it, right? Share the information with your team, and then once you're in a good space and people are that they know they can depend on you, continue to like pull more information. Talk to the architect on your team. Have a one-on-one. Ask them what their day-to-day looks like. Ask her to send you to other people who may be able to be a good mentor to you on certain things. Show up and just listen. If you can continue to expose yourself, that's what it means, staying willing to learn. I think I called it staying thirsty and I made you laugh.
That's what it was. I was trying to figure out what was the phrase you said. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Custom Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Baines. Very excited to be here with you guys today. We have a special episode shot from Atlanta. Came out to ATL for a NSBE conference. That's the National Society of Black Engineers. But while here, I got an opportunity to sit down with Reginald Campbell. He's a director of engineering for Etsy. So excited to kind of learn about his journey, how he got into his current role, and then also just give some professional development advice for you who may be either starting your career or looking to transition into leadership. Reggie, my guy, I appreciate you for making time. How's everything going?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. Yeah, happy to be here. And yeah, let's get to it.
Cool. All right, man. So, director of engineering at Etsy. During the pandemic, a lot of people were running up the Amazon and the Etsy bills. My wife was one of them. But people don't always think of Etsy as like engineering, right? Like that, even though y'all have a website and an app, a lot of times people may think of like homemade goods and things like that. But excited to learn about what you do. So kind of, I guess, to kind of kick it off, like what does your role entail as director of engineering? Like what does that even mean being at Etsy?
Yeah, director of engineering at Etsy. For me, it embodies just working with a team of great leaders. Right now, my area spans from long-term storage databases to short-term storage, Memcache, Redis, to areas like runtime where we're worrying about how do we actually run our applications? How do we get things into production? There's the development side of it, the dev platform. How do we actually build blocks to help engineers get things into production faster or smoother? And so, that's the components of the technical side. But as a director, I'm there to kind of help my teams and those leaders and those SMEs, the subject experts in those areas, help them lay out a roadmap, execute on it. And then if there's roadblocks, find ways that we can make those roadblocks into opportunities, help grow people, help nurture them, help correct things that come up. But there's a myriad of things that come with a director, but that's just a small snapshot of what it looks like from a day to day.
Gotcha. So, like, being in your role, like, you have leaders, managers that report to you. So you have that people management side. We were talking before, and you do a lot of, or you just mentioned it as well, a lot of like strategy, like roadmap development work. Do you also do you get to get your hands dirty from a technical standpoint as well? Like, are you coding at this level, or is it just like, look, let's lay out the roadmap, and I'll have,
Well, I have a great team of engineers to handle that. On my free time, I like to still learn.
yeah,
It's a double-edged sword, but you spend time learning new technologies, or at least learning the things that your team is touching so you can be better prepared. At least that's how I approach it.
yeah.
I'm not an expert on everything, but I like to at least be able to have some type of intelligent conversation about that area of technology, even if I haven't necessarily pushed out an application or code to production on it.
Yeah, so that's something I'm curious about because I know, again, like it's only so many hours in a day, right? And it's like you probably put out a lot of fires with like just from a people leader standpoint. But it's like, how do you kind of stay up on the latest and greatest technology? Like, is it a lot of reading, or are you like talking to people, figuring out, picking their brain? Like, how do you kind of manage that part?
Yes. So it's one, reading, learning about new things that's coming out, speaking with your leaders, doing skip levels with your engineers on those teams. They'll give you ideas, speaking with other leaders within the company, and then just other leaders in your community, leaders from your past areas, just kind of staying open to what's happening and then just following some, technical websites, following the code. But yeah, it's really just wherever it comes from. Just take time to read, like, okay, why are they doing this? Why is this security exploit this way? Or why is this new technology better than what I came up with? And go read up on it and then have an understanding of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not going to ask you to like disclose Etsy proprietary information, but is there any technology that you're kind of interested in or excited about? I know we have like AI is like making its way, is getting ingrained in everything, whether it's, small business owners up to Fortune 100 companies. Are you guys leveraging AI, or are there any other technology components that you're kind of excited about that you can share? I don't want you to get in trouble, you
Yeah,
know?
I won't speak on anything for Etsy. I think for me, a few things I'm excited about. Of course, AI is always the exciting one, but it's AI, machine learning, and data science. Like that
Mm,
whole realm is exciting. And then for me, it's just continuing to see how we further optimize what we have. So, for example, looking at what latest cloud offerings are coming out, like what the cloud providers are pushing out and why is that a big deal, and just reading up on that and learning on why, like, how did they get to that point. But yeah, that's how I answer that question.
Okay, cool. Well, man, so I saw you've been in this role for about a year and some change, maybe.
We're getting close to 2 years now.
All right, it's exciting. Is this your first director role?
It is.
Okay. What has this experience been like compared to like what your perceptions or your thoughts were before going into it? Like, were there anything like being a director that you thought you had some assumptions or whatever versus like how it actually is now, and kind of misconceptions, I guess?
I'm gonna be honest, I was pretty open. Like
Yeah.
I knew, like, hey, this will be new. I will make mistakes. I'll grow, but I'll also
Yeah.
be able to shine in certain areas. And I was right on all of that. You continue to stretch, right? Like your role, your areas of responsibility have grown. And so you have to spend more time planning, right? Planning and execution is key. So if you don't do that, you find yourself unprepared. And I don't like to feel that way or make anyone else who depends on me
Mm,
feel that way. So I'm quick to say I don't have the answer, give me time, or here's what I have for you, or talk to this person, delegate whenever possible. So interested being in this role now, because early in my career when I saw a director, I didn't have the frame of mind of like, this is what their day to day looks like. But now
yeah.
I understand those things that they were doing back then. I understand it now because there's certain decisions that have to be made for the work to even get to an engineer before it's actually viable.
Gotcha. What would you say to kind of follow up to that? What would you say is like the most challenging part of being a director?
Challenging part, it depends on the day,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not always just going to be one thing. Leadership, no matter what role, is always a few, at least four areas. And so one day it might be the technology that's difficult.
Hmm.
One day it might just be your roadmap. The key is to always stay flexible and just realize, like, hey, today I'm going to spend more time with just one-on-ones and skip levels and be there as a person, just understand, build, express empathy for things that's happened, and then just make sure there's cohesion. I won't say one part is harder than the other. It's just making sure that you're open to switching context. Maybe I can say that context switching, that's hard,
Gotcha.
right? One meeting will be this, the other meeting that comes up right after is going to be completely opposite.
Yeah.
And, you need to be present.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's tough. I kind of think like going along with like being able to like compartmentalize stuff, right? Because you may have like one meeting that's like the world's on fire. It's just, things are not working out like we thought. We need to come up with a new, I don't know, business vertical or whatever. But then the next meeting may be, yeah, things are going great, man. Then we have these new features that we're rolling out. Customers are really responding to them well. And so I think being able to like, to your point, like I kind of visualize that as like compartmentalizing. I know that's something I personally like, I'm trying to get better at. Like I may get one phone call where it's like, yo, we want to hire, we want to work with you. We want to, whatever, help you. We want to we want to work with you on some recruiting, or we want to post a job on your job board or whatever. And I may get another phone call where it's like, okay, hey, yeah, I got a videographer that does some podcasting for me. He's like, yo, I messed up the video, so it's not going to work out. So it's like being able to switch. And then I got a family, and so I may get a phone call with that. So being able to compartmentalize things and not let one good or bad thing get me like too high or too low is something that like I'm working on. It's like a work in progress, and I'm like, I got to get this better, because some stuff be like messing with my mental, and I'm like, what is going on? Why can't they just do whatever? But is that so that as you were talking, I was just thinking personally, I think that's kind of how I can kind of relate to that part of it. So man, so I was checking out your LinkedIn profile. You've been on like quite a journey, man. I saw you spent quite a bit of time in media. And so I was like, man, you're really building out your media like powerhouse of, experience and things like that before transitioning into your current role. Was there anything that, was challenging making that transition? Because I saw you were at CNN at one point, you were at Bleacher Report at one point, Warner Media. There may have been one other like media kind of company in there, but was there anything that caused like any difficulties or that you had to do when transitioning? Because you were an engineer, like at the end of the day, but I don't know if there's any differences there.
Transition, no. Like those times I have fond memories of, just because I was learning so much. And so to me, it was, hey, we're using the technology a different way. And so if you have a good understanding of the technology around you, you can shape it to be the solution for whatever they have. So yeah, my career has been, big data. There's been government, there's been finance, there's been insurance, there's been media, there's been a little bit of sports. It's been all over. And
Yeah.
so after a while, you have a appreciation for the business, but you also understand like there's going to be some like core essential things that they're going to need from the technical side. And so just having a good foundation, and then also understanding what do you want to do in that technical space, because early in my career I didn't know where to really go, so I was just
Yeah.
learning as much as I can, being nosy, reading stuff, asking people questions, because you just don't know what you don't know until you ask.
That's a good point. That staying curious part is very important. I think we may have talked about that before, where it's like, that just leads to different kind of conversations, and then you figure out a part of the business that's super important that you wouldn't have known if you didn't ask. If you just focused on being a head down engineer and coding whatever, versus understanding the why behind it and how you can add value to the organization.
Yeah,
So
I think I called it staying thirsty, and I made you laugh.
that's what it was. I was trying to figure out what was the phrase you said. You were like, yo, because I get that question a lot. Like, I get the question of like, how do I stand out as a candidate, as a job seeker, or how do I progress my career? And you said like staying thirsty, and I was like, okay, what does that mean? So what? I guess kind of elaborate on that. Like, what does that mean to you?
For me, this is a callback to the very beginning of our conversation. Continue to just read and understand, and from a leadership perspective, that's how I do it. But from an engineer, it was, yeah, you handle your task, right? Like if your team, your manager, your peers are depending on you to do what you need to do, execute well on it,
Hmm.
improve it, right? Share the information with your team, and then once you're in a good space and people are that they know they can depend on you, continue to like pull more information. Talk to the architect on your team. Have a one-on-one. Ask them what their day-to-day looks like. Ask her to send you to other people who may be able to be a good mentor to you on certain things. If there's certain meetings that you're invited to that have nothing to do with your workload, attend it. Right? Show up and just listen. Even if you don't really pull anything from it, just sit there and listen, get some information. If you can, go look at other repos. Go look at code, and it's like, oh, I didn't know this is what was going on. Like, just continue to expose yourself. That's what I did, and kind of helped me in my career. I learned, hey, I don't like that, but I do like this, or hey, I didn't even know this was possible.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, I've seen this before, so it's good to know that I'm familiar with whatever they're doing over there. So that's what it means, staying willing to learn.
Yeah.
Right?
Gotcha. No, that's important, man. I think, and that'll lead you to meeting some amazing people that you won't get an opportunity to meet if you just focus solely on what your job is, what the task is. And similar but different. That's the podcast has allowed me to do that. Like, I get to meet people like you and have conversations that I normally wouldn't get a chance to have just in a day job. So I think it's like looking for those unique opportunities to connect with people, learn what else is out there, what else you're interested in. I know we were talking before, you, like me, identify as an introverted person. So that could be kind of challenging at times to, get out of your shell and talk to people. How do you kind of balance that? Like the introverted side of Reggie that's like, yo, we don't want to talk to nobody today. Let's just go chill in the back of the room versus, getting out of your shell and going to talk to people and approaching them, ask them, questions about what they do, how they got into what they're doing without even actually knowing them or anything. How do you kind of overcome that?
You just keep in mind that people are depending on you to execute. Right?
Mm.
That's what I do. So if I have certain things on my plate, I'm going to go do it. Right? If I need to go talk, lead a meeting, it's not my most natural state, but I will do it. And also just a personal pride. Like you want to do your best, especially when people are looking at you for a direction or for an answer. So yeah, I am introverted. I have those tendencies, but I've learned to move beyond that and don't let that be a limit. It's just a component of my personality. So you move around it, do what you can, and then you go back and recharge in the back of the room.
Yeah, no, that's real. That's real. And I definitely relate to that. I have some moments where I'm like most outgoing person in the room, but then I'm like, yo, it's time to go back, go home, recharge, and not talk to nobody for a day or two or something like that. So I can relate to that. Good stuff, man. Going back, so I don't have to even look. I remember I was looking at your LinkedIn profile when looking at the companies you've worked at. And I may get you to say something on camera that maybe somebody doesn't want you to say. But I noticed, like, in terms of duration at these different stops, it was like 1 year, 1.5 year, 1 year, 9 months, 1 year, 1 year. And so I know a lot of times job hopping is like considered a negative thing, but on the flip side, a lot of times to progress your career and get that next opportunity where you get that promotion or you get that raise. We're gonna try and talk about money a little bit later, but when you get that promotion and that raise, a lot of times you do have to leave the organization. Have you found that to be true in your situation, or what was kind of the motivation even for you kind of leaving one spot and going to the next throughout your career?
Yeah, so I would say the earlier parts of my career, it was really just like going back to what I said, like trying to figure out what is it that I want to do. But then once I got to some larger companies, they might be separate entities that's on my resume, but they're actually one corporation.
Okay.
And so to me, it was like, hey, I'm just moving around.
Warner, right?
Yeah, all Warner. So it was really just staying within the family. Like you work with someone because you were in a meeting you didn't need to be in, and you made a connection, and then you were able to go work with that team on a different project in a new area. So that's one aspect of it. I also say, yeah, if I feel like if you have done your job, you've done it well, you should be open to a new opportunity. That doesn't mean you should just jump for anything, but you should always just be open, but don't abandon your responsibilities just because you just want to go look for a new job.
Yeah.
So yeah, but early in my career, I didn't know, right? Like there was no, when I first started, there was no like Terraform wasn't really kicking off, Docker wasn't there, SRE wasn't really structured. I think the book may had just came out, so that whole philosophy wasn't there yet. But as it became clear, I was like, oh, this is where I've been executing on, and I was able to kind of connect a lot of things I had worked on. Like, oh, it's more than just DevOps. This SRE, it's a philosophy. DevOps is part of SRE, and it becomes now I see a pattern of what I've been doing, and that actually made me a little bit more confident versus me just doing random work. I didn't see value in that, but now that I know that's part of a philosophy that is needed, that I was like, okay, I feel more essential now. Like I feel more validated.
Gotcha. That's a good point. And I mean, you don't know if you're gonna like it until you try it. And I mean, that's why like internships are so powerful. Podcasts are great, but I think you actually have to like get in it and see like what's it really like. And then it may differ from company to company a little bit. So I think that it makes sense, especially early in your career, try it out, date and see what company has the culture or the opportunities you're looking for, and then what role specifically makes sense from that standpoint. What I'm curious, at the beginning of your career, what was the first job, very first job? And was it after college, or what was kind of that
My very first job.
in software? 'Cause I don't know. I don't need like. It seemed like everybody's first job was McDonald's, mine included. But
Yeah, like my very first job was definitely not tech. It was a page in a library, but um, my very first job was the web manager at the Florida government. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay,
I was updating HTML and CSS.
wow,
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
good, good, okay, cool. Did you go to college for CS, or did you just kind of learn on your own, or how did you?
Yeah, it was mentioned in my degree, but it wasn't
Yeah,
necessary. It wasn't like I didn't go to school for front end engineering or like design or graphics or anything like that. It was just I got exposed to it, and of course, just being in the technical space even before I graduated, like, oh, okay, I know this. Like, I know
yeah.
HTML. I've looked at page source before. I've right clicked on the web page and looked at the source
Uh,
code. Now, was I good at it? No, but I knew what it was and I worked on it.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was just curious about that because I know it's a journey, and we'll have another part where we kind of like take a deeper dive into like your full journey and everything like that. But one thing I did want to ask you, you mentioned a couple times already, like going back to staying thirsty and like talking to different people, and that opens up opportunities for you. Is that how did you land some of your opportunities that you've had? Have they been like applying online, or have the majority of them kind of come from word of mouth? Somebody like, yo, I got a new opening. I know Reggie would be a good fit for this. Or how did you kind of land some of the different roles you've had throughout your career?
When I look back, it's a mix.
Hmm.
Some of it is, some of it was, I applied. Some of it was, I knew someone over there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just going back through. Yeah,
No, you
it's
good.
really a mix.
Okay.
And the opportunity necessarily may not be a job. It may just be you worked on a project that gives you either the technical experience or just the visibility that
Hmm.
you may need in your career. When I look back, it was those other opportunities was, hey, I either applied or someone I knew there advocated for me on my behalf. Yeah.
Okay. What about the Etsy role specifically? Was that something like a recruiter hit you up, or is it like, somebody was looking to internally that you knew, or what?
No, I applied. My wife put me on to Etsy during the pandemic.
You didn't even know about Etsy
But
before then?
yes, I give her credit for it because during the pandemic we needed masks, and she was like, "I got it from Etsy." I was like, "What? Etsy?" I was like, "What are you saying?" And so I went and looked at Etsy, like, "Oh," and I realized, like, I was reading about them, and I realized, okay, this is what they do. I was like, "Oh, let me go look at these opportunities. I see one. Let me go apply."
Mm.
But yeah, she put me onto it. I had no idea.
All right. Look at the wife coming through with the win. I'm sure she might remind you every once in a while about her putting you on game in terms of like even introducing you to the company. So that's cool how that worked out. And then from there, it was just typical interview process. Like,
Yeah, I can't really get into that, but yeah, I applied, got the job.
all right, cool, good stuff. Cool, cool, cool. All right, man. No, it's good. Yeah. So I mean, I think everything that you're saying makes a lot of sense. Adds a lot of value to people. I was recently talking to somebody. He's been in a entry level code tester role for a little while. The title hasn't changed, but his pay has increased. And we were kind of talking, asking like, I asked him like, why do you think that is? Maybe, and part of it, he doesn't get the same visibility of projects to work on throughout his career. Like they're not necessarily the latest and greatest, products or features that he's getting to work on. It's more so general overview, maybe kind of bounce around on different projects. And so when you mentioned visibility earlier, as one of the things that kind of helped you throughout your career, I thought that was a really good point to kind of highlight. So just kind of want to reiterate that.
And you said the co-tester is getting more compensation, but no elevation in his title.
Yeah, yeah. This guy specifically. So I don't know like all the different tiers or levels that they have at his company, but like I guess the typical 3%, raise. I think he may have had an opportunity to get something maybe a little bit more than that, but it would have what they would have been asking for. It wasn't an opportunity that he was interested in.
I'll be
But
interested to know, has he received any feedback?
yeah, I think from what I understand, like it's like a scaled feedback system, and most of it has been, I guess, like the median, the three, is like, okay, you're doing good, you're doing what you're asked of, but I'm not sure what it requires to get like a 4 or a 5. Throughout my career, I have noticed that working on like bigger problems for the organization does help, because then we get a chance to interact with. Then I'm getting called into meetings with like the chief engineer for a project, or even just being able to introduce myself and give a quick update on, okay, hey, this is what I've seen come out of this or whatever, or this is my analysis on it, or this is what I've done to improve or address the situation has always helped. But for him particularly, I'm not sure like what additional feedback or what they would be looking for. I do know that visibility piece was something that he identified as like, he doesn't really work on big budget, high visibility projects that could, give him that exposure to a director or a VP or whoever, and then your name gets kind of brought up in different conversations. So that's just a side note, I guess. But
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I mean, if he's listening, that's great feedback that he needs to.
Yeah.
He needs to work on that and then just put himself out there. You may not be assigned to, but it doesn't mean you can't follow
Yeah.
those big projects and at least put your voice out there as an opinion. But that's actually a great topic.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, we'll hit on it in part 2. Before you go, though, I do want to ask you, as a director, I'm curious about like just your general recommendation. There's a lot of software engineers, especially junior level software engineers that watch the show, and some of them may be doing like coding boot camp. Some of them may be going to school. Some may be self-taught. Just kind of curious, in your opinion, what would be like the best starting point from a technical stack, like from a technology standpoint? Is it MERN still the way to go? Is it hey, just only focus on React, or is it something else? Where have you what would you recommend for like a junior level software engineer that came across you today?
It depends on what you're building, right? If you're, I guess if you want to be handy no matter what, you can go with JavaScript or another language. But I would caution on just saying focus on one language. I would look at what are you trying to build and what's the best language that's built for that tool or for that solution, and go from there, or best or the most reliable. Because sometimes you just need reliability, right? To make sure that whatever you have, especially if it's like for banking or for healthcare, like sometimes you don't need the best, but you do need the most reliable. JavaScript's always a good one. If you're looking at like a junior level developer, if you're looking at gaming or you're looking at mobile, I don't know. It's hard for me to say it without really having context, because then I don't want to say a language and then you go out there and build a MERN stack for something that doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Or you go, you use Python to build something that Python was meant for. Like, I'll be seeing you down a bad path. And I don't want to say that to someone and they come back like, you said this in this video. Like, I didn't mean it that way. So I would say, look at what you're building. Understand the needs for it. Is it single-threaded, multi-threaded? Is it going to be a distributed application where it's going to be all around the world? It's going to be used all the time? Or is it going to be internal? Is it going to be heavily trafficked? Does it need to be cached well? Is it going to be an application that's going to need a database? Look at all these things. Are there multiple callbacks that need to happen in your system? Are you waiting on other things to come in? Is it a streaming data where it's live, right? Like, all those things have implications on what tool you use for the job. Once you have an understanding of what you're building and what type of frameworks you're going to do, not only will you know, hey, this is the best tool, but this is the best way to host this app. And that's how I would approach it versus just saying, I'm going to use C++ for this whole thing that I'm going to put out there.
Yeah. No, I think that's valuable feedback because, when you're starting out, you don't really know where to go. And you don't even know the why behind the decision. Right. So the way you outlined it, if I have banking experience and background, maybe as a teller or some other mortgage lender or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I already got experience in this industry. Maybe I want to look at, okay, hey, what from a reliability standpoint, which language would be the best one to learn? That way, like if you're pivoting, you can leverage your experience, your background experience a little bit better. So I think that's great advice in itself. A lot of times I try to like stick somebody to one point, but a lot of times it's not actually just one answer that fits all. Like it depends. So I think that's valuable feedback in itself. I definitely got to get you back on here to, break down your journey more, and then also, giving more advice to people. Definitely even curious more about like your role as a director, some of the conversations and the interactions that you have with executives at your corporation. I know you can't disclose all of that, but even just, from a general overview standpoint, we'll just kind of be curious to kind of have you back and kind of talk more about that and give more advice to, less experienced engineers who are looking to progress their career. So I appreciate you, man, meeting me in person out here in Atlanta, willing to sit down with me and do this podcast interview. I appreciate it a lot. Real quick, if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to go about it? Can people hit you up on LinkedIn or?
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Okay.
That's the best way to hit me up. Reginald Campbell. You see my face.
Yeah. Cool. Good stuff. All right, man. I appreciate it again, man. For those of you watching, I appreciate you guys staying tuned. I never say it at the beginning of the video because I never remember, but make sure you like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. That's it for this episode. We'll see you all next week. Peace.